Hey up, I'm Nathan Human, and this is episode 18 of The Biscuit Reviews. In this episode, a great example of why it's good to step out of your usual comfort zone with your reading diet, as I take one from my to-be-read shelf that I've passed over far too often, and a random pick from my local library. By pure chance, they both explore characters whose identity might be hidden even from themselves, and the notion that we don't really know anyone else. I picked up Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng to start reading over a morning coffee and maybe read a couple of chapters. By lunchtime I had finished and needed a little bit of time to process the incredible story of the Lee family and the disappearance of teenage daughter Lydia. Assumption by Percival Everett, a slim volume that is actually a triptych of stories about Ogden Walker, a deputy sheriff in a small New Mexico county who is thrown 3 perplexing crimes. And I desperately need someone else to read this so we can please discuss the ending. This episode was going to be a totally different book, but I had to change my plans as Everything I Never Told You captivated me so completely this week. I only intended to make a start on this book over a morning coffee, but less than 4 hours later, I had barely moved and I was left stunned by the novel I had just raced through. It fairly slapped me around the face with what felt like some distressing scenarios and then soothed the bruise with the salve of haunting flashbacks, salted with a sting of dramatic irony. The opening grabs you with the first sentence: Lydia is dead. But they don't know this yet. Then the first 7 pages drop so many pinches of character and detail that it establishes a quiet, foreboding tone with a confident ease. It's 1977 and Lydia is the 16-year-old daughter in the small college town of Middlewood. And they are Mum and Dad Marilyn and James and her siblings Nathan and Hannah. When they wake up one morning and Lydia is gone, each member of her family knows something different. And it seems each of them knows a different Lydia. In such a simple way, this book is devastatingly brilliant. It picks at what we see as identity. Who is someone else, other than how we have interpreted them to be? When we ask, what are they like? We actually get the answer to a completely different question. What do you think they are like? The writing likewise dances with precision from graceful balletic lines of prose to a sharp tap-tap of blunt expression. The style seems to mirror the lives portrayed as we know the dreams of each character, the joyful hopes, but then we get the sober, harsh reality. The hook of what has happened to Lydia and the fallout with her family would be enough for some novels, but Celeste Ng paints an elegy for the lives that have been lost as the story arcs back to the 1930s and through to the 60s. I can't recall a story that so poignantly depicts the trauma of feeling cut adrift as an outsider. From James's experience as a Chinese-American child in the 30s and 40s, something still shared by his kids in the 70s, to Marilyn's treatment as a young woman wanting to be a doctor in the 60s, through to the feeling like the odd one out in your family. As the story moves forward to the consequences and impact of Lydia's death, we flash back to vignettes of each family member, like photo albums brought to life with the real story and emotions revealed. Each revelation adds greater momentum, as you need to find out what is the resolution for each character. In this way, it doesn't so much remind me of any of the book, but of the TV show This Is Us, especially in the way that the flashbacks help with the show don't tell element. We see what has happened from different perspectives, which helps draw us in further. At times this book is heartbreakingly sad, not just because of what happens to characters, but because of what they do, to the point where sometimes I got a little frustrated, even angry with them. Little candles of optimism are lit by moments of certain characters, and we cling to their warmth whilst others are cruelly snuffed out. I might be drawn to a book due to the setup or genre, but the reason one stays with me is the craft of the story and the mark left by characters. Everything I Never Told You will be one of those books I recommend to everyone I talk to. Admittedly, that's a small number, for the next few weeks. Firstly, because it tells a gripping story with interesting characters. Secondly, because it's a story that is unlike any I have read before. And thirdly, because there is so much cleverness in how the story is told, and I am a sucker for ones that you think about and then go, oh yeah, that bit was all set up back when that happened. or when you realise how you've been thinking about one theme in great detail. It is a staggeringly good book, and one that I suspect will reward repeat readings. My biscuit rating is a mini orange cream cookie. Wasn't sure what to expect, but didn't last long and munched my way through in one sitting, savouring the surprising flavour. Win a book. Would you like to win a book? There is still time for anyone with primary school aged children to enter the competition to win a book. That's over on the Chatterbooks podcast, by children, for children, about the books they've been enjoying. It's available at all the usual places, with links and more info about how to enter at thechatterbooks.co.uk. And if you sign up to my free newsletter at thebiscuitreviews.co.uk, you'll be the first to hear about news and competitions. A reminder that you can also find written reviews and all past episodes. That's thebiscuitreviews.co.uk. I've been using the library to try different authors and pick books that I might not usually go for when parting with my own cash. Save money, widen my palette, and cut down on stockpiling more books. Win-win-win. And I was literally just wandering looking for something that caught my eye, and I ended up turning up Assumption by Percival Everett. Never heard of the book, never heard of him, but the quote by the New York Times clinched it. The settings, the protagonist, and the eccentric cast of characters will haunt you long after you close this book. I'll add to that by saying it made me think of early career Coen brothers directing an Elmore Leonard novel. The humour is quick and sharp, the characters quirky and worn, and the situations sometimes baffling. Ogden Walker is ex-army, and now a deputy sheriff in a hick-full redneck county, as he says his dad would have called it. He also said that at least it having less people meant it also had less white people. His dad is gone, leaving Ogden behind with his mother, a dog, and a whole complex side order of guilt and tension about his job and race. Sure, okay, there are crimes in this book and our protagonist investigates them, but you can kind of leave behind any notions that this is a cosy crime book or one like those detective thriller series. Ogden doesn't seem that interested in being a policeman. He doesn't seem that interested in anything apart from fishing, to be honest. But he contributes, along with pretty much every other character, early on to a general sense of unease, a bit like the quiet bits in a David Lynch movie. The three stories follow Ogden as he travels through makeshift local tracks in the desert of New Mexico, and then on a 1,000-mile-plus round trip on the trail of vandals, a one-handed man, prostitutes and drug dealers. In the face of some bleak characters and stories, Everett offers remittance in the form of snappy dialogue and witty one-liners and comebacks, and this also helps build the sense of a lived-in world and a cast that knows each other well. The desert setting only adds to the sense of people on the edge of civilization, on the edge of surviving, and there are some lovely little oases of humanity dropped in almost accidentally by characters musing on something seemingly unrelated. In all three stories we come across people who are not who they seem and trying to accept that there are things that we will just never know. I can see how the slight shift in genres within each story could frustrate someone who wants a straightforward thriller. But hey, when does life stick to one genre? There are enough clues and trails to keep anyone interested in the crime side of it, and the relationships and people keep the drama ticking along. But what kept me reading was the feeling of being slightly kept off balance by the author and never being quite sure where we were going. Which leads me to the ending, and honestly, I will be amazed if anyone sees it coming. So please, can someone read this book and then message me so I can talk about it, because it's really bothering me. Lovely, thanks. My biscuit rating for Assumption by Percival Everett is a white chocolate digestive. It has a lot of the same ingredients and elements that you're familiar with, but then it adds that little twist that makes you go, huh, okay, different. That's all for this episode. Next time, we travel back in time to the Isle of Skye for a cosy British drama, as well as head back to Nottingham for a rom-com sequel by Vari McFarlane. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed listening, why not give us a mention on your favourite flavour of social media, or tell your pal in the pub or your bus driver? I'm off for a brew in a bicky. Until next time, ta-ra.